File item 16, SB 582, Senator Hall.
Thank you, the Honorable Chair and members of the committee. I would like to begin by accepting the proposed amendments noted in the comment section of page 4 of the analysis as author amendments. SB 582 provides clear guidelines for the installation of electric security fences based on international standards to ensure that safety and reliability of installation is in non-residential zones. Many California-based companies, including those in the cargo, inventory, storage, and container shipping business, have at any given time millions of dollars worth of product and service-related equipment on their premises. Many businesses utilize electric fencing to further protect their inventory. Unfortunately, current state law on this use and installation of electric security fence is of an electric security fence in non-agricultural zones is very vague. SB 582 provides uniform guidelines for the installation of electric fences and empowers the local governments to further define the appropriate installation of these fences to protect businesses and the public. There is no opposition, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you very much. Witnesses in support? Please, go ahead.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, good evening to you. My name is John Lee, and I represent Electric Guard Dog, which is one of the sponsors and supporters of 582. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank your Senate colleague, Senator Hall, and your staff for your assistance in bringing this bill forward. 582 seeks to amend the current state law with regard to the approval of electrified fences designed for protecting business owners and their property. Currently, it's determined mainly at the local levels. And in our experience at the local levels, there are some jurisdictions that specifically allow these, some that do not allow these, and then there's others that are silent. And it is to those that are silent that they look to the current state law for guidance. And so in those conversations, there's two issues that come up. One is, as the state law is codified in the agricultural section, does that even apply? And the second issue is, assuming it does, what is the appropriate standard for determining safety? Our position is that 582 addresses these two key concerns. We support this bill, and we'd ask that you support this bill as well. Flanked to my right is Michael Pate, who is an officer of Electric Guard Dog and is here to answer your specific questions.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, I move the bill.
Motion to move the bill. Any opposition? Any discussion? Senator Monti.
Quick question. It's a good bill. I'll be supporting it. But on the signage, is it only in English?
No, sir. It's in English, Spanish, or any other language that might be specified by that particular municipality.
And how do you make that determination?
Usually the planning director would make that determination.
Within the municipality?
Yes, sir.
So, but you do have the capacity for...
Absolutely. I already print about 20 languages now.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Very good. We have a motion. Madam Secretary, this is due pass as amended to the Senate floor.
Jackson?
Aye.
Jackson, aye. Morlock? Aye. Morlock, aye. Anderson? Hertzberg? Leno? Aye. Leno, aye. Monning? Aye. Monning, aye. Wachowski? Aye. Wachowski, aye.
5-0. We'll leave it on call. The bill will go out. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Madam Chair.
All right. Senator Hall, you have one more. File item 22, SB 761.
Yes, Honorable Chair and Senators, let me begin by accepting the amendments referenced in comment 4 on page 7 and 8 of the committee analysis as author amendments. These amendments were developed in discussions with Airbnb and served, obviously, to strengthen the bill. SB 761 requires short-term rental companies to disclose on their websites or mobile application that a potential host listing a room or unit for rent may be in violation of their lease and may subject the tenant to legal action, including possible eviction. SB 761 will also require potential hosts to acknowledge this disclosure prior to listing the short-term rental online. Over the past few years, there's been significant growth in online companies that allow people to rent a room, apartment, or home on a short-term basis. Unlike homeowners, tenants who list their homes or units create a host of potential problems for the property owner and neighboring tenants, while at the same time potentially violating their own lease and subjecting the tenant to legal sanctions and possible evictions. Currently, some tenants may be subleasing their apartment or rooms and be unaware that they're violating their lease. This legislation will help protect tenants by encouraging them to check their lease or rental agreement to make sure they are not in violation. Short-term rental websites are a great part of the growing sharing economy and a valuable tool to travelers. But properties listed on these sites should be in compliance with laws and contractual agreements. They may limit the use of the property to third parties. SB 761 provides tenants with important information about the important potential legal risk of listing their room or unit on a short-term rental website and will help ensure the long-term stability and growth of this segment of the sharing economy. I respectfully ask for your aye vote. We have Sean Apickian here to testify in favor of this legislation.
Thank you. For clarification, have you accepted all the amendments that were proposed?
In my first opening.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Madam Chair and members, Sean Apickian on behalf of the California Apartment Association. We are in support. SB 761 protects and educates tenants about the risks associated with short-term rentals. While, as the Senator said, these websites are certainly useful, we believe they should be used in accordance with local laws and contractual agreements. There is an important distinction between a homeowner who uses a short-term rental website and a tenant in an apartment who uses a short-term rental website. In California, the majority of leases have a prohibition against subletting. And under current law, a landlord does have the right to evict a tenant for violating the terms of the lease and subletting. However, many tenants are not aware of these prohibitions, and that's understandable given that they probably haven't read their lease in a number of years. And leases these days can be as long as 25 pages long, given the required disclosures that we are required to do as owners. While eviction is certainly not the preferred option for any landlord, the potential safety and liability issues are almost too great for owners and their neighboring tenants and the potential host as well. For example, short-term renters or short-term guests have no screening done. They don't have any background checks. The keys to an apartment community can be given out to any stranger along with gate codes and locks and so forth. And so for those reasons, we think a disclosure that's very short, factually correct, will be a win-win to both property owners as well as tenants and the other neighboring tenants within that community. We ask for your aye vote and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Madam Chair, members, Pat Moran with Aaron Reed and Associates representing the San Diego County Apartment Association. We agree with what Sean has to say. It's a simple reminder to tenants to check with their landlords or check their lease to see if they'd be in violation of it if they engage in this activity. We don't think there's any harm in putting this up on Airbnb's website or another website who, offers this as a service. And we encourage you to support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other witnesses in support? Any witnesses in opposition? You'd step forward. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Greg Hayes with KP Public Affairs on behalf of Airbnb. First of all, I'd like to thank Senator Hall and the Apartment Association. We have been in discussions with them for a while now to try to come to a conclusion on this bill that we think is satisfactory to both my client and to the Apartment Association and landlords they represent. I must admit initially they weren't warm to the idea of a disclosure. But through the discussions, we believe we've found common ground with one exception, a primary sticking point, and it's around the word eviction. It is our position that this is a bit of a sticking point, and we'd consider it an overwarn. Not all leases prohibit subleasing or contracts prohibit subleasing. And in the case of when they do, not every instance where this may occur would it be considered a material breach. So in the interest of our business and the health of the business, we don't want to get into a position of overwarning when it's inappropriate and unnecessary. So we also understand that the author has an interest in making sure that there's a consequence communicated. So we offered alternative language. And if I may read, something more along the lines of a material breach of your lease could result in legal action against you by your landlord. So that's our position on the bill. But we look forward to continuing working with the senator to try to find a happy conclusion.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Senator Morlock.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Hall, I just want to say that I really like this suggestion. I've reviewed Senate Bill 593, and it's so onerous, but this is a mature thing to do, just to provide a nice notice.
Right. Thank you.
Just be aware that there might be a provision in your lease. And I also agree with the friendly amendment being requested for changing the word eviction to legal action against you by your landlord. I think that's a reasonable request. And I'm just wondering, is that something that you're open to?
Eviction is universal, is a universal word. Everyone knows what an eviction is. It's very matter of fact and direct. And so at this time, I would not be willing to accept a friendly amendment at the committee hearing from my opponents.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, Senator Leno.
I just want to state that I think, Senator Hall, you're on solid ground there, because looking at the language, listing your home may be a violation of your lease or contract and could result in legal action against you by your landlord, including possible
Thank you,
violations.
sir.
So you've got a belt, a suspender, and a bow tie. I'll make sure that the tenant understands. Just look into it a little more.
Be careful.
Yeah. So I'll be supporting.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Senator.
All right, any other questions? You answered the question, so would you like to close?
No.
All right. Is there a motion? All right. Motion by Senator Leno do pass as amended to the Senate floor. Please call the roll.
Jackson.
Aye.
Jackson, aye. Morlock. Anderson. Morlock, aye. Anderson. Hertzberg. Leno. Leno, aye. Monning. Monning, aye. Wachowski.
All right, 4-0. We'll leave that on call. Thank you, Senator. All right, next we have Senator Hill. And we will start with SB 633, file item 18.
Thank you, Madam Chair. SB 633, co-authored by Senate President Pro Tem De Leon, will help California businesses grow successfully, and allow them to market their products and create jobs. Current law prohibits California businesses from marketing their products as made in the USA unless 100% of the product is made from domestic parts. California is the only state in the country that has such a standard. All 49 other states use the federal all or virtually all labeling standard, which allows a small amount of flexibility so companies can use an insignificant amount of foreign content. This is important in today's global economy in which certain components cannot be found in the United States. A 2011 court case determined that California's statute requires 100% domestic parts to label a product made in USA. In their ruling, the majority opined an opinion stated that despite their ruling upholding the law, the justices have, quote, angst about both the effect of this law, particularly in an age of global trade, and the potential for abuse that may arise under the unfair competition law. The justices stated, I quote, if we had the power to do so, we would rewrite the statute to address those concerns. But our Supreme Court has cautioned the judicial role in a democratic society is fundamentally to interpret laws, not to write them. To establish the all or virtually all standard, the Federal Trade Commission surveyed consumers in the early 1990s about what they thought made in America means. Their survey found that what is most important to consumers is where the final manufacturing takes place, not just the source of the parts. The survey results found that Americans expect a high content of American parts, but understood that there should be some flexibility to incorporate foreign components. In establishing the all or virtually all standard, the FTC also considered the importance of encouraging American manufacturing and creating jobs. As currently written, SB 633 makes California law consistent with the federal standard, bringing our state standard in line with every other state in the nation. This minor policy change can have significant positive impact on California's workers and businesses because current law disadvantages California businesses that are competing with foreign companies. The chair has offered amendments that, instead of using the federal standard, would allow for a 5% exemption for foreign materials, and I thank her for the consideration. And I appreciate the chair's willingness to work with me on these amendments, but the lowest that I can see that could work for many businesses would be a 10% exemption in that. And here's why. 90% is still an incredibly hard standard to meet, and it's still higher than the federal standard and higher than labeling standards in any other country. And California law uses a less stringent labeling standard for other products. For example, current law says that wine sold in California has to contain at least 75% of its grapes from the county of origin to advertise as a wine from that region. In other words, to be advertised as a Santa Barbara wine, only 75% of the grapes have to be grown in Santa Barbara. Another example is the Made in California program. The law says to label as made in California, a product only has to be 51% made in the state. Yet another example is California's Organic Products Act, which allows a cosmetic product to be labeled as organic if only 70% of the ingredients are organic. A 5% exemption would help relatively few, if any, California companies. But a 10% exemption would help companies like Bulldog Lighting in my district, and could, I believe, help Maglite flashlights and help Lifetime Products, which makes basketball hoops. Bulldog Lighting in my district, which was started by a brilliant teenager, makes LED lights for off-road vehicles. And they have done everything possible to manufacture their product domestically, creating jobs in California. Their aluminum comes from Texas. Their silicone O-rings come from Hayward. Their reflectors come from Benicia. Their polycarbonate lenses come from Fremont. Their screws are made in Hayward, and the final assembly is done in Burlingame. However, some of the components for their printed circuit board are not made domestically. They've tried to find them, but they don't exist, so they can't legally label that product as made in the USA under current standards. Bulldog's domestic content is in the 90% range, and allowing 10% foreign content will help the Bulldog Lightings of California market their products and create jobs. The 10% exemption is a reasonable compromise, and you might hear from the business community that it doesn't go far enough, actually. But I think it strikes a reasonable balance between the committee's desire and allowing a small subset of California businesses to label as made in the USA. And it's still much stricter than the federal standard. So we have witnesses. Thank you, Madam Chair, for indulging me.
Thank you, Senator. I'm sure we'll get back to this, but let's have your witnesses. 2 minutes each, 2 witnesses. We're getting a little late in the day, so if you could keep it to that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. So who would you like to speak?
Well, I'm Joel Joseph. I'm chairman of the Made in the USA Foundation. I'm going to divide my time and let Maglite speak for 1 minute.
All right. Very good. You have 1 minute, sir.
Okay. I want to address Senator Leno's comments before, which I thought were very appropriate. We talked about frequent filers, and that's what this law is set to correct, because there are basically 2 law firms in California that have sued Maglite, and they've sued Lifetime because they had a few tiny components that were imported. No consumers were helped by this, or virtually no consumers were helped by this. Only the law firm really benefited from that. I am a lawyer as well. I'm the one who brought the Kwikset case that the senator referred to. Briefly, Kwikset moved its entire plant from Anaheim, California to Mexicali, Mexico, but kept labeling its locks made in the USA. That's what that lawsuit was about. And the California Supreme Court ruled that consumers had the right, and we believe they have the right. We represent consumers and manufacturers like these here. I'd like to.
Thank you very much. 1 minute? Very good.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to express on behalf of my employees. My name is Anthony Maglica. I own Mag Instrument, Ontario, California. I'm manufacturing this product in the United States, and I'm proud of it. But we have, just like a gentleman said, some component you cannot make in the United States. There is not there to buy. If I would make it or buy it, it will cost me so much money I couldn't sell the product. Most of the component, all these machining is done in California. Most assembly is done in California. It buy all in California or Arizona or somewhere, like raw material. I contribute to a California state now approaching close to $10 billion to the state. $10 billion. And ladies and gentlemen, this has been killing me. I have nothing to fight with. I have stuff from China coming in. A product is on a shelf over there. People doesn't know what it is. I can't say made in USA. The customer asked me, why don't you put made in United States? I can't, because the state rule, which is 50 years old, 60 years old, I don't know how old it is.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you so
All right,
much.
who would like the other 2 minutes?
I'll take one of them.
Quickly, please.
My name is Tim Scatty. I'm General Counsel for Lifetime Products. Lifetime was founded 25 years ago in the garage of our owner, and we now sell in all major retailers in 80 countries throughout the world. Changing the standard in California is good for consumers because they want to know where things are made. And currently, manufacturers like Lifetime don't mark them because of the difficulty of determining the ultimate source of even the smallest component parts. Sometimes we can't verify whether something is there, so out of abundance of caution, we don't mark it. So consumers don't get to know where they're from, and we don't get the benefit as a manufacturer who's based in the United States, who makes things in the United States, of telling people that. And I think that this bill will help alleviate that problem.
Thank you very much. All right, there's a minute left. If somebody wants it, you got
I
it.
would like to just jump on that just for 1 minute.
You've got 1 minute,
Okay,
and then we're going to just get
California's-
name, rank, and serial number. Go ahead.
California standard right now is 100%.
That's California. Well, this bill is about made in USA, so let's stay with that.
No. The California law says if you put made in the USA,
Right.
the product must be 100%. The highest standard in the world for any other country is Switzerland, which is 60%. Canada only requires 50% content to be made in Canada, and all the European countries are less than that. Germany voted down a proposal that it have to have 45% German content to put made in Germany. So now you can put made in Germany on a product that has less than 45% content. This is basically unfair competition. If Maglite can't put made in the USA with 95% US content, and a company in Germany who made a flashlight could put made in Germany with 40% content, it's just unfair competition.
Well, that depends. If you would rather buy something that's made in Germany versus made in the USA, maybe that would make a difference. But I appreciate the analogy and the attempt that you're trying to make. But I think the 2 minutes, the 4 minutes is up. We'll have questions if you like, but let's try to get through this. We have several more bills, and it's already a little after 5. So are there any other witnesses in support?
Yes. Madam Chairwoman, Michael Shaw, California Manufacturers and Technology Association. And very briefly, I would note that the Made in California program that many of you supported in the last legislative session is dependent on a Made in USA label. So without the Made in USA label, you cannot be declared Made in California either. And again, as the Senator noted, the Made in California only requires a 51% Made in California standard. We believe this will be positive for manufacturing to make this minor adjustment to California's requirement on the Made in USA labeling.
Okay, very good. Thank you, sir. Quickly, please. Oh, wait a minute. Let's let her be heard here. Okay.
Ladies first.
All right. Anyone else here in support?
Madam Chair, Chuck Cole.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chuck. You were sitting here nice, giving away your time.
No,
So,
that's fine.
okay, very good.
On behalf of the Specialty Equipment Marketing Association, our $33 million in products and 6,800 members, California-based, we think very strongly that this message should be carried to the world. It'll improve California businesses both nationally and internationally.
Thank you very much. All right, witnesses in opposition? Do we have any witnesses here in opposition? Please, if you'd make room for the opposition. Just one person, okay? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Richard Holliver. I'm with the Consumer Federation of California. We are opposed to the bill. We've had bills similar to this the last 3 years since the 2011 ruling of the California Supreme Court that found that when consumers purchased products, in this case being quick-set lock sets, that were labeled Made in USA, but in fact contained imported components, they suffered economic injury because they relied on the truthfulness of that label, and it was not a truthful label. And in that ruling, the state Supreme Court did state that labels matter, and in particular to some consumers, the Made in USA label matters. A range of motivations may fuel this preference, from the desire to support domestic jobs, to beliefs about quality, to concerns about overseas environmental or labor conditions, to simple patriotism. The court went on to say that in adopting the standard, the legislature recognized that companies were using or might be tempted to use inaccurate Made in USA labeling. Consumers might be deceived and rely on it, and consumers and the competitors who honestly make their wares in the U.S. and marketed them as such were being or would be harmed. So we know that Made in USA label is quite valuable. And in fact, 2013 Gallup poll of U.S. adult consumers found that 64% of consumers said they would pay more money for a product that's made in the U.S. And that 45% had said that in recent months, they had made special efforts to find made in U.S. products for sale. So we believe that it is a valuable and desirable label, and the price for that should be truthfulness. That's the price for the desirable label. In fact, under California law is very clear. A product has to be made in the U.S., its components have to be made in the U.S. in order to have that label. That's what's called an unqualified label. There's nothing in law that stops a qualified label, and you see these all the time. Assembled in the U.S., created, designed in the U.S., assembled in the U.S. of imported and domestic content. And a label could say 90% made in the U.S., 95% made in the U.S. That's all perfectly legal, provided it's truthful. The problem with the federal standard, first, it is vague. Second, it is ambiguous. And third, it is not enforced. And I know members of this committee who have heard these bills before, we've used the example of New Balance shoes. Now, New Balance is a company that claims to be made in the U.S., and this is from their website, and Sergeant, if you could hand these out, says the company has determined that if 70% of the domestic value is, the value of the product is domestic, they put a Made in USA label on that product. The FTC has known about this for 20 years. In fact, they signed a consent decree with the New Balance company saying that as long as you don't have a product 100% foreign content, we won't go after you. So the federal standard is rarely enforced, and it is subjectively enforced. So if you start to talk about, is 5% enough, is 10% enough, that could easily run afoul of a vague, ambiguous federal standard. California's standard is very clear, and I think with the opportunity of people to use their judgment. When I see something, if it says 95% made in U.S. versus something that is entirely imported, I'll go ahead and buy that. Consumers are sophisticated enough to have the truth and make decisions based on the truth.
Thanks very much.